No matter which business you are running, it depends on people, processes, and information technology. So keeping your IT services online is essential to drive your business. In case of an IT incident, such as performance issues or outages, you need a quick solution. Even better is to prevent such a situation proactively, because it's costly and can damage your reputation.
Thank you for joining our session today. I would like to talk about the support package management initiative that we drive by KnowledgeRiver in order to understand infrastructure on a higher level. We will go to the sections of this PDF just by scrolling through it. Maybe we can have a discussion later on our LinkedIn group, where we also discuss the functions and features that I'm talking about today. We will have here you see an overview of the author, myself, so if you're interested you can download the PDF and have a look at it. The main item is the IT service incident description within the ITIL documents. We will talk about today the overall impact of the message that ITIL has sent with this statement, and we will see how we can mitigate problems that we have today within the infrastructure, or we also see how we can reduce the impact of future problems in the infrastructure. Let's go into a nearer view of the statement. An unplanned interruption to an IT service or reduction in quality of an IT service. So this is the first type of incident that ITIL is talking about. The second type is a failure of configuration item that has not yet affected the service, is also an incident. So we have two different very distinct definitions of an incident, and the distribution across the infrastructure is here seen as well. We have facility management, infrastructure management, and configuration management. And the majority of the problems that we see in any of the industries that run a data center is within the configuration management. Of course, there will always be facility management and infrastructure management problems, but they are very less in comparison to the configuration management problems. Support package management usually raises questions with customers, and you see here a list of questions that you might get asked by your customer. We will come to the answer of it at the end of this white paper. So let's start with a wider range of looking into this support package management business. Support package management by itself automates the collection and handling of support packages within an infrastructure. The infrastructure need to be prepared for support package management. For instance, an NTP protocol should be implemented at the customer in order to keep all of the timestamps within the different resources synchronized to itself, so that an incident in one resource can be linked on the time basis to another incident. We also need to have syslog and SNMP message management in place in order to capture the messages over a longer period of time. The resources usually have a very limited amount of internal storage to save messages. So what we need is a constant flow of information going out into a syslog management tool, as well as the performance monitoring is a very high needed part of the infrastructure in order to understand the behavior of an infrastructure, performance behavior of an infrastructure for a longer period of time. First of all, we need to define the overall process. When we have a look at this picture here, we will see that all the blue elements usually belong to the customer, and this is established today. We have our change incident problem management tools, we have our hardware, software, IT security, cloud elements within the environment. We have different data center with hardware stack, software and IT security. We even have smaller network segments that will contain resources, IBM storage, SAN infrastructure, server of any type. And all of these elements, all of these resources generate support packages. For every time a customer buys some resource from a vendor, and it doesn't matter what vendor it is either a software or a hardware vendor, these resources will create data packages that will allow them to be sent out to the vendor in case where you claim that this resource doesn't behave correctly. Most of the time, or many customers don't even know how to collect the support package of a resource, and in case of an emergency, all of a sudden there is a need of getting these structures implemented, and then it is usually a hush-hush type of implementation. We would like to have the support packages collected at a push of a button within a very short period of time. It depends on the size of the infrastructure, but the time window should not exceed 6 hours in order to collect everything. A good timing is 2 hours at most. What you can see here is we will have monitoring and performance data pushed into a particular area. We call this our Octopus infrastructure, DC360 Octopus. He collects and he is responsible for the collection. We have resources, hardware, software, cloud infrastructure that can push in data to this Octopus infrastructure. From here we have now 3 choices. In case of an incident, we have immediately a package that will define this incident by pointing to a data collection of all data from the infrastructure. Then we can split off the parts to particular vendors that will now analyze the data based on their own tools, and they will give you a result at one point in time. And we have also a chance to have somebody else, KnowledgeRiver for instance, look at the overall data collection and give you an report, give you an estimation what type of problems we see. Also part of the KnowledgeRiver software suite is Manatee. It contains access to all of the results from different vendors, from KnowledgeRiver, from maybe even your system provider, whoever analyzes data in your infrastructure. And now here you can create the decision points on what do we need to change in the infrastructure to close the circuit on the whole process. Unfortunately, you have probably seen that as well. Sometimes you get the message from a vendor, sorry, I can't see anything wrong in my system, it must be somewhere else. Yes, and that is unfortunately most of the time one of the messages that you will get. It's very hard in a larger infrastructure to pinpoint the real culprit. You always depend on others with all of your handling of the infrastructure. So let's define the overall collection process. The support package management basically means you have to collect the support packages of resources and place them into a single directory structure. The directory name should contain the date and time when this package has been collected, and it should not exceed the, as I said, the 6-hour collection period. Better would be a 2-hour period where you collect all of the information. The collection is done with the operational infrastructure, so you should have today already most of the resources needed to collect these information. They are just not organized. By getting the support packages collected from a NIM server, for instance, for all of the Unix infrastructure, from Windows, from a task user, or in storage-SDAN from Windows or Linux systems that are connected to the storage and SDAN infrastructure, you can also, you have now all of the vehicles available to run the collection. So what we have is the centralized data store that is available from all over your infrastructure. You have the monitoring tools with its CSV export. You have AIX, IBM, Solaris, Spark, Windows, VMware, whatever type of operating system pointing to this data store, and you have your storage and SDAN infrastructure also sending data into this point. From here you move the data to KnowledgeRiver, and we will do an analysis either on site at your location by logging us in from remote into the Manatee, or by coming on site at your customer and analyzing the information gathered. Now, this is a view to multiple sites, and now we are getting into a single network infrastructure, a network segment. Within a single network segment, you can have many processes that collect the information. Important is to collect them centralized. You will probably have CIF, Samba, NFS ports opened to your firewall so that all of your server can connect to this drive. You have Octopus, our Octopus tool installed, for instance. That is one way of doing it, especially when you have a password, user ID password pair that you need to provide to the resource, mainly switches, SAN switches, network switches, and storage subsystems. If you have server and operating systems, you usually have a centralized console that allows you to execute batch file shell scripts, Perl scripts, whatever is necessary to communicate with your infrastructure. You have IBM I, IBM Z systems that can also connect to this point as long as they know when to start and what to collect. All of this is part of the support package management infrastructure. The process flow of the infrastructure of the support package collection is: you have a master, you have a site that could be a master, you have a network, and you have multiple network segments, and you have 3 trigger options. Usually this is a scheduled trigger, so you collect all your data once a week. That is what we recommend for all of your infrastructure from a scheduler. You have an incident that you want to collect this package right at this moment. So you push a button on a web page, or you execute a script. And of course you have monitoring tools that allow you to execute a batch file or shell script that can also trigger now the data collection. If a message appears, a certain message appears in the infrastructure, you would like to have this stopped in order to not get into more trouble and collect the data immediately. The implementation is, as I mentioned, done on multiple levels, and important is the centralized data store with the monitoring data and all of your infrastructures from NIM server, Linux server, Windows server, going up to the stack within the infrastructure to the data collection point. Here is the so-called red button. Somebody wants to have the red button on his desks when to immediately start the data collection, and you want to have this done within minutes of the incident that you had just seen a problem within your infrastructure. In order to keep these things secure, you want to see this also just as shell script and batch files that you control, that you have complete ownership of as a customer, and you will then allow somebody to visualize the data, to look at the data from a security point of view, and move the data that you really need to have analyzed up to a third party that can now do all of the analysis within a very short period of time and gives you the feedback you need in order to overcome a situation. As I mentioned before, we have these standard questions that customers ask, and the answers to these questions are listed in here in our document, and they will give you a chance to respond to your customer within a very short period of time on what he wants to achieve and what he needs to know about support data collection. And of course, we can help you to implement these processes within your infrastructure at any time. It's all a remote setup facility. You can do it by yourself following the documents, the white papers that we provide, or you invite us and we will support you by implementing this infrastructure.
Did we convince you? Well, then visit our website knowledgeriver.com and discover further helpful services.
Or just send us an email to contact@knowledgeriver.com.